unseen.
So I'll start now. Realty web series today marks its completion of 1 month. We started exactly 4 weeks back to seek answers to questions arising out of the new situation post-COVID. During the past 4 weeks, we have discussed office spaces, retail, and the overall state of the real estate. Today we are here with a very interesting subject and even more interesting panelists. We will discuss Realty Gen Next and the challenges before them. We are joined by Yukti Nagpal, Director Gulshan Homes, Ashish Bhutani, Director Bhutani Group, Yash Miglani, CMD Mixon, Nimish Arora, Director and Interim CEO Select City Walk and Iron Group, Mohit Arora, Director Supertech, Baniji Anand, Director ATS, and Nayan Raheja, Director Raheja Group. Welcome everybody.
Thank you.
Hi Yukti, I think you guys are not finding me too much misfit in this young crowd.
No, Palash, I think we've gotten used to asking us questions.
Yukti, being in real estate, has it been difficult for you to get acceptance both because you are a woman and you are also very young from the older generation or from the older set of people who are already working there for years in Gulshan?
Well, I joined at 23 and a woman, of course. There was a lot of resistance around it, especially by the people who've been, directly managed by my dad or my uncle, superiors, really superiors to me. So there was a lot of resistance initially, but of course you had to carve your way around it. So I did that. Gradually, with all the controversial questions that I kept asking in the boardrooms, that made people and everybody, all the seniors in my organization, also believe that I'm not talking out of my ass. I know what I'm talking about. And when those conversations were intrigued, those questions were asked, and gradually, with over time, that acceptance was built. And needless to say, I've had endless support from my dad, who always lends a ear to all my ideas. So that has been a big silver lining right there. So yeah, of course, it took some time, but now everybody has accepted me as a new age leader of the organization. And I would just say there are two very important things that can make that happen. That is perseverance mixed with humility. There is no other way to go around it.
Bani, the same question goes to you as well. You are a new generation leader and also a woman, and real estate is not considered to be very much a place where women are mostly seen. So has it been difficult for you to get acceptance?
Definitely. I mean, I think acceptance in general is difficult for any second generation entrepreneur, man or woman, I would imagine, in any business, because I mean, we cannot deny that, look at this panel today, we are all directors and CMDs at what age? Clearly, there is a sort of sense of privilege that we come from, wherein we're given authority even before we're prepared for it, sometimes even when we're not cut out for it. That being said, of course, when you're working in a framework and an environment like real estate, it is very sexist, and people may still have acceptance for like a male second generation entrepreneur, but a female most definitely not. But I think the only thing that I believe in is, I don't know, I think I like what I do too much to give up on it. And I believe that, the only way to counter it is if I do something about it. And I try to do it with, trying to better myself every day and speaking only when, I'm fully aware of a situation. So I try and kind of grasp as much as I can, learn as much as I can, make sure my arc of growth is steep. And that being said, I try with Women's Wing at Creda as well. So hopefully, I think the generation that will come after will not have to face the kind of challenges we have, but it's still work in progress.
Ashish, you have taken the brand to a newer level, being a second generation entrepreneur. How the journey has been so far and how you have been able to do it?
So the journey has been obviously very challenging, given the fact the elders, the way they used to do business was very contemporary. And when we came to Forte, it was very clear we wanted to make not matchstick buildings. We wanted to get good concepts into India. Something that people would say actually cannot be done before or never been tried before in India. So those kind of concepts would not only challenge us as a group, it would always bring out the best in our employees as well. They would also go a step further and for our vision betterment, for the group's advancement, believe in us.
Mohit, how it has been to get an acceptance? Because your father built the company from the scratch. He has done a lot, labored hard, and when you came in, how it has been?
So I am in the system for a quite long time now. I started when I was 21. It's been 11 years since I'm into the group. So it was I considered myself very lucky that I got a platform to start with, where I could implement my imagination and my vision. And luckily, my father also agreed with the vision, with my vision, which I shared to bring in new concepts, as Ashish said, and new innovation to the industry, be it in terms of technology that we use in the construction, or the kind of projects we were developing and we got into. So in fact, my father, who was leading the company since beginning, also supported in my vision, and we
You,
multifolds since then. And uh, on in tenure of my 11 years, it's a good thing that I saw all the ups and downs of the industry, all the challenges of the industry. It has been a very, very good learning.
Nimish, coming to you, now you are designated as the interim CEO of Select City Walk. And what is the strategy? This is a huge challenge before you, because you are taking over the reins at the most turbulent times the industry has ever seen, and that too for in the retail space. So how are you taking this challenge? How do you plan to take the brand and the business ahead?
Thank you, Palash, for having me here. Yes, just to clarify a particular point, I'll be taking over the charge on 1st of June officially as the interim CEO for Select City Walk. But yes, it is a tough time. It is a time we haven't seen for the last 13 years. We have been in existence as a shopping center. But I'm very excited. I am very positive that we'll come out of this much stronger. And we are working very closely with our retailers, and it's not us versus them, it's a partnership, and we are very positive that we'll come out of it and find suitable solutions which are a win-win for both in times to come, and continue our leadership position on that front. As far as our other real estate projects is concerned, I have been part of the system for last 13 years. I was lucky enough to have the option of working outside the group for about 5 to 6 years before I joined the business. I was part of Ernst & Young and was exposed to very large corporations and transactions over there. So yeah, that experience came in handy, and it's been a great journey so far, learning under the guidance of my dad as well as my late uncle. So yes, I'm very excited with real estate, and I'm very positive for the future.
Yes, you have been very aggressive both in terms of marketing and sales than the previous generation. And recently, we have also finding reports that you have done a record number of sales in these tough times also. So what's your mantra? How are you able to do this? And this aggressive marketing strategy, has it been very helpful, which was not a part of your group strategy earlier?
Yeah, it's been about 4 years now. I've joined the company, and I've totally revamped my marketing strategy, which is very important these days. So to start with it, everything revolves around the kind of schemes, the kind of gift packaging you've been giving to the customers. So in this lockdown, I've learned a lot of things, how to create customers and how to just get that bookings in our company. So starting with the schemes and engaging our channel partners, and different schemes were given to the customers. So that is the best part, and we have almost done about 200 crores of sales till yet. So we've been rigorously behind the customers. My only target was to burst my pipeline, which was there since last 7-8 months. I was trying to burst it, and lockdown, we have given about 10, 12 schemes to every customer. So the essence, whatever scheme we gave to the customer was to the payment has to be on time. So once the payment is on time, you are eligible for that scheme. So everything revolved around the timely payment. That was the only target I had in my mind. And right now, we are suffering on the collections. Sales, touchwood, is not a problem with us. Collections has been a big issue for, I believe, for everyone. So collections are dragging up a lot because bankers are very reluctant to disburse the amount. They're saying whether the customer will have that will pay the EMIs, because some of the customers have already opted for the moratorium period, and they're not getting salaries also, not now, right now. So they've been reversing everything, the sanction letters, and the customers have already got the sanctions and all. So they've been reviewing everything now. So right now we are totally focusing on the collections so that we could just see how to maintain our cash flow. So it's all about the cash flow. Company is all about cash flow. Sales is like, okay, so we have done good numbers. Collection is a big task right now. We've been following with the customers with a 360-degree communication, starting from your voice call to the SMS to door to door. Also, we have started doing it now. Sending our people, we have made about 7-8 team where our team is going to the customer's place to follow for the payment also right now. That is also one of the things we have been doing it.
Now, Nayan, coming to you, you are in all the segments from land to residential to commercial. So what has been your strategy? How is it different from what your father was pursuing?
Sorry,
Nayan, can you hear?
Yeah. First of all, I'm extremely thankful that you've considered me, to be part of this very, very young entrepreneurs meet. And I may be probably the oldest out of everyone. I'm not sure. So, but I'm happy. I'm first of all very happy to note that I'm part of the young Gen Next still and going strong. So how has my journey been? I would frankly say that my journey is still in the works. I continue to learn not only from my father, although I feel that he has given his entire life dedicated to the mission that he has. Lots to learn from him, but apart from that, I think I'm still constantly learning. And it would be wrong to say that any of us is not learning even during these times. I think the world and and our country, it is so unpredictable. I remember when I joined the business back in 2006, 2006-7 were very, very different times in real estate. I am yet to see the kind of madness that I've seen back in those days. I've seen customers bashing each other up outside our office, just for an opportunity to buy property. And I've seen those highest of highs, and I've seen the lowest of lows, where we are running after the customers that, there is this scheme, there is that scheme, please, it's a good product. So I think last 15, 16 years has shown us pretty much everything. And it's been a great and tremendous learning opportunity for me. Where I think when I came in, I just freshly finished my architecture school. The first thing I wanted to make a change to was the design of our buildings. I personally always had a vision that, our buildings should connect more with nature. They should be more sustainable. We should have a net zero sort of output, in every building, wherein, whether it's about the electricity, about the water, about the greenery, vegetation, sewage discharge, any of these things, we should be minimum reliant on nature, or let's say completely recharged back to nature. I think that is a goal that I have largely managed to fulfill, and most of our buildings are now gold or platinum rated. It does cost a little extra, but I think it's a great goal that we are achieving now. In terms of construction, we today work with some of the best companies across the world, best of the engineers, and even a lot of labor workforce. that I think we have made huge amount of improvements in over the past few years, and I count myself as a part contributor to that achievement. In terms of marketing and sales, we have created a very robust system. We have worked very hard, with our customers and in our outreach programs. But I feel that it's also gotten challenging over the time, and we've tried to adapt as much as possible, with the time. So I think the proof is in the pudding. Things are there to see. Products are getting delivered, and inshallah, we are very proud of the kind of products that we are able to deliver now as compared to 10, 15 years back. And I hope the going will remain good, and I hope that all of us as an industry are able to tide over these very, very tough times.
That's good. Though I had a number of questions for all of you, but we have already viewers' questions pouring in. There's a viewer who hasn't written his or her name, but is asking this to you, Yukti. He is saying that I had a chance to work with Yukti and she has amazing energy. How do you maintain it, Yukti?
Well, it's just you have to do it. You have to stay positive. You have to keep going. Like in the starting of the session, Bani said, we're all good. That's as good as we can be. We are all good. We're much better than the rest. You have to keep building that positivity inside of you. That's the only way to go about it.
Now we have one more viewer, Abhishek Divedi. He is asking to both Ashish and Yash, do you plan to create a crisis team looking at the turbulent times, as most of the companies have it? Ashish?
See, as far as a crisis team goes right now, there is a panic button, but you have to also see the fact that many people are now scared whether they'll be able to retain their jobs, they'll be able to earn the same amount they were earning before. There is also a factor amongst the spouses. If the spouses, one of the spouses is not there anymore, what is the security for their children? How will the school fees go when they grow up? Insurance can only cover up to a part, to a certain limit. They can give a lump sum amount. But if you talk about a commercial property per se, commercial property is something you buy it once, and the generation after that keeps enjoying the rentals. So that is a security a lot of people are looking in. In lockdown alone, we got about close to 2,000 inquiries and we closed about 750 odd sales. So if you talk about a crisis team will only try and save the bookings that have already been made. But if you talk about the future, a lot of companies from China will move into India. In Agra, Velex has already been signed. Mr. Yogi is personally going after Cisco, FedEx, Amazon. So all these companies coming in, and the world's focus now shifting towards India. I think Indian real estate will see the next 5 years as the most beautiful time ever.
Yes, your answer to the same question?
So I feel in every problem there's a opportunity. So I feel that customer has money in their pockets, because Indian people is all about savings. So only we need to focus how to just get those customers in our company and just sell that product, because they have realized the value of their own home. So right now we are totally focusing on the rented apartments where people are living. So they have realized it's been 2 months. All the people are after their life for the payments and all, whether it's landlord, whosoever it is. So they've been focusing now to get, so repo rates is one of the examples now. At a 4% of repo rate, we could get good benefits in terms of the EMI. So the crisis team has to be made for the collections, which is a severe pain for every company. So right now we have made people of 6 people. We are focusing on the crisis of collections only. Cash flow is the only big pain. Sales is not a big pain for us as of now.
I just want to add one more thing. People keep using the term crisis. I do not see any crisis whatsoever. Yeah. He's right. I agree with Yash on that. There's a very famous quote from Game of Thrones. Chaos has a ladder. So every time there is a chaos, there is a ladder. And I think real estate now will benefit the most from it. So instead of a crisis team, Yash, you should be forming a collection handling team.
That's very important.
But Ashish, these are no doubt turbulent times, especially for the office and the retail sector. The malls are closed, people are working from home, and it is going to be the new norm. It is going to go on for some time now. And in offices also there will be less number of people. There will be more distancing. How are you saying that this is a good, and because you are mostly operating in these sectors?
पलाश जी आपने अपना आंसर खुद ही बता दिया बहुत अच्छा. See, with social distancing coming in, the government's earlier norm was 65 square feet distancing per person. After this coronavirus pandemic, they've changed it to now 125 square feet per person. So now you realize entire India needs twice the amount of office it needed before the lockdown, which is not possible to come. So they are now trying to promote work from home. Now, may I ask you a question, including your good self or including all the amazing panelists? How many of them would want to work from home? KPMG, PwC all did a study. 99.8% of the people do not want to work from home. Today, everything is about networking, how you go out, how you meet new people, the new energy that you meet, how you grow. So if work from home, even Mr. Satya Nadella as well last week commented that work from home is not possible, it will lead to depression.
Yeah.
So overall, I am looking at such a robust demand that trying to look at new plots now.
Good. Nimish, coming back to you, real estate is not considered to be an industry which is very much professional. You being a chartered accountant, a qualified chartered accountant, and how are you coping up? Because professionalism is something which is not very much common in the industry.
So, Palaji, I think very relevant question, and I think most of us in our generation are looking to work more professionally, find out ways where we can delegate tasks, where we can set up systems and accountability metrics for all our staff and teams to have better accountability as well as better results and efficiencies into the system. If we have to grow, we have to have the systems and processes in place. Yes, my experience during my professional career did help in bringing a lot of those aspects to the business, setting up those systems and accountability for the teams. And in times to come, that's the only way to go. We need to use technology. We need to use systems to make I think most of us here on the panel have already implemented their ERPs and implemented their systems to get better outcomes, have a more professional approach, as well as ensure timely delivery with the required quality in place for their products. So I think that's the only way to survive and grow and come out stronger than everyone else in times to come.
We also have Aditya Rana from Aastak with us. Aditya, your questions to the panelists?
Yeah, I would like to continue with the question regarding the office space. So, Ashish, there are two things which are coming up. I am convinced with your logic of office space, but there is a report also regarding the malls. As per recent reports, 70% of the footfall is expected to reduce in the malls. Already e-commerce has emerged as a big threat to malls. So if we talk about the commercial real estate, are you guys looking to continue with the development of malls, or will be reducing to the office spaces only?
See, sir, what happens in retail, as you said, luxury is a very different animal. I'll just quote one of the brands, Chanel India. They did a combined sale of approximately, I may be wrong, but that's what I heard from the grapevine, for 15 crores in the entire year. And in Shanghai, one of the store opens for Hermes, and the first day after lockdown, they did a sale of $1.7 million. That's almost the sale equivalent what Chanel India does in the entire year. People right now, money has not evaporated. Money has not disappeared. India's population is almost 125 crores. God forbids Corona gets worse. God forbids, I'm saying, fingers crossed, it should not happen. And even 50 lakhs or 60 lakh people die. But still, it's India. We'll always produce 4 crores or 5 crores more every year. the demand will never ever go down. Demand will continue to go up. With the youngsters coming, with the millennials coming, people will always ramp up their spending. People are now more scared कि कल को रहेंगे कि भी नहीं रहेंगे. Right now, I want to buy a very good friend of mine. Most of us know here as well, Big Boy Toys, Jatin. So I was speaking to him yesterday. He tells me, yeah, I was planning to buy a Rolls Royce a couple of years from now. I'm buying it next month. So people will actually ramp up spending. It's like America or Dubai or London, where people have lesser amounts of savings and they spend more on themselves.
But Ashish, people are also saving money these days. Everybody is keeping up to its holding on to its his or her cash because people are very uncertain about their salaries, about their jobs. So everybody want to save that money for the rainy days.
Absolutely, sir. Then the offices come in handy, na? Then we'll sell them offices for their savings. See, whichever way you took, we win.
I actually say
Ashish is a true salesman all the way.
Of course.
I'd like to say something here because we're talking about what the impact of COVID would be. I feel like any one of us, with due respect to everyone sitting over here, actually does not know today. I think we would be greatly presumptuous in saying that, oh, this is going to be fantastic for us, or even that this is going to be disastrous for us. Because we still don't know just how long we might need to sit at home. We don't know how long it's going to take for a vaccination to come out. We don't know whether we're still going to focus on flattening the curve by sitting at home, or we don't know if we're opening the economy. So right now, I would stay away from giving any sweeping statements on whether this is great, whether this is an absolute disaster. Because, I mean, we really don't know. I mean, if the governments of the largest nations don't know and WHO doesn't know, then we also don't know. That being said, I feel like the one thing I agree with is that the demand for affordable housing definitely, in my opinion, would likely see a surge, because I feel like people have kind of understood the importance of having their own home, having their own safe haven. But the population of people who will do revenge buying, as they call it, or buying Rolls Royces is less than 1% of India's population. So anyway, the largest demand for housing or any kind of real estate lies at the middle and the bottom of the pyramid. Now, if we're smart enough to cater to that and find a way to do that, we have a huge opportunity lying in front of us. That being said, first we need to focus on survival. Today, everybody is kind of, stuck with a very illiquid cash flow situation. And till the time we don't figure out how we're going to complete our existing projects, I think we should take a seat and just understand what it's going to be like 6 to 8 months later.
That's a very honest answer.
I would like to intervene one point on that. Sorry. So when you take a flight, do you not know that you will reach the destination? Or you carry a bag along, a parachute along for you to...
You know that it's not going to crash. You don't know anything.
Absolutely. But you always take your luggage, you plan your journey back, hoping it will be a beautiful trip. So Corona is there. See, the reality is no vaccine is coming out for months. Corona is a reality. It's a SARS COVID-19. SARS came back in 2004. It's still there. Corona is a reality. People will keep falling sick. God forbid it can happen to any one of us. But the opportunity, what I see, is that people do not like the transparency with what China operated. And now a lot of focus will shift into India, bringing a lot of funds, lot of new business options into India. Once that comes in, real estate is the first thing that people cash on in.
No, I couldn't agree more there, which is why I'm saying that how well diversified your portfolio, even an investment in real estate, is very important. And how you will get to a point where you will manage to raise enough capital to, kind of grow your business is the next challenge, because we are all kind of scramming right now to figure out how to the current situation.
Bani, you and me will do this time later. People will actually not get a chance otherwise.
Yeah, sure.
Aditya, more questions.
Yeah, my next question is to the Mohit and Nayan. There's a report published by Analog where they are claiming that reverse migration will help in improving residential real estate in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. But do you really think that people who left from metros and left the job income sources, will they be able to buy houses, considering that they have returned to their homes in their hometowns? So why they need a new house, and from where the money will come to buy a new house for them? Also, if they need extra space, then they can build an extra floor or on the paternal properties. And along with this, I would like to ask that if reverse migration is going to help those towns, then what is the impact on these metro cities?
Okay, so Aditya ji, for first of all, I would like to tell you my point of view of this COVID-19 scenario. What has happened that people have realized that their biggest investment is their own house. There was a saying also going on social media and everywhere that the only vaccine for this COVID-19 is your own house. So people have realized that having the importance of having their own house. So definitely, and we have already seen that spike in residential sales also during this lockdown. People who were investing their money in stocks and mutual funds and living on rent have started withdrawing their money and putting in their houses. So, and coming to your next question, that people coming back from to their hometowns will definitely increase the demand of affordable housing. And our honorable Prime Minister also is of the opinion to promote affordable housing all across the country. And we expect to see a very growth in demand in tier 2 cities also, because these laborers and not just laborers, a lot of mid income or lower income group people are also coming back to their hometowns, and they are actually looking for the houses near to their hometown. Why people are running to their villages? Because they want to in difficult times they want to live in their own hometowns. So we expect to see a very good growth in residential demand all across the country, even in tier 2 tier 3 cities. Affordability is, we'll have to generate affordability. Good thing is that under PMAY, even central government is supporting some of it, and luckily in tier 2 cities the cost of the land etc is comparatively low than metros. uh, but yes, affordability is a question, and we all are working towards generating that affordability very hard, and central government is also supporting that.
I'll take one more viewer question. There's a viewer called BM Jha who is asking to Ashish, Yukti, and Nayan. Aggressive marketing increases sales, or it is helpful in increasing the brand value, the image of the company. Yukti, starting with you.
I'd say aggressive marketing will only bring you quick results, temporary results. So it definitely translates into sales for the time being. But to create a brand value, you have to take a slow route, keep being at the right touch points, and keep connected with the kind of audience you are catering to. That is what builds a brand value. And aggressive marketing will only get you short-term results, in my opinion.
Nayan, your answer to that?
So I think today, if you look at your telephones and your smartphones and your computer and your television and all the kinds of social media that you're consuming at all times, you're getting bombarded with so many people who want to sell you something, and there's surrogate advertising. People just want a piece of your time, and that piece of time is being sold ahead. So I think aggressive marketing is the name of the game. You need to be able to get a little bit of that time for the person to know that your product exists in the market. However, the way Yukti has said, ultimately what you build over time with your construction, with your customer relations, with your reputation, and with your good word of mouth can never be replaced by any kind of marketing or any kind of gimmick. So you should obviously market to the right audience, market in the right way. But nothing beats a good product on the ground, especially in the real estate industry.
Ashish, since we are talking about marketing only, and viewer has asked this question to all three of you, how much of your total ad spend goes to the digital and how much to the non-digital medium, and has it been changing, and how much will it change in the days to come?
See, first of all, I would like to say advertisement depends on two things. One is cognitive marketing, what we call BLT, and other is push marketing. See, cognitive marketing is something that is used for brand recall. It is not used for sales. What people say, hoardings of Bhutani or Gulshan or Raheja developers, they are for brand recall. If you talk about push sales, as you said about SMSs coming in, that is what I call aggressive marketing. What happens is today, if somebody is going on the road, they see a couple of Apple. I'll just give you an example correlated with Apple. Apple is selling for the last 10 years the best smartphones in the world. They have been the market leaders, but their advertisement spend for their brand recall, everybody knows what a camera of an Apple iPhone can do. But yet you cross a Oberoi flyover or you cross any good junction in Delhi NCR or all over the world, in fact, why do you see Apple hoarding? Telling what a camera can shoot. It is about brand recall. Push sales, as far as is concerned, is now going up, but I am never a believer of push sales. I am never a believer of aggressive sales. I believe in slow marketing, steady marketing, but very, very consistent marketing. That marketing, that whatever the company is doing, whatever the strategy is, it can remain and does not fluctuate with turbulent times.
I really want to add to your point right there, Ashish. I think consistency is the only key in marketing if you want to keep creating that brand value for your product. And I'd say, as a brand at Gulshan, my brand has also suffered from that for a very long time until only recently that we got into the consistency of doing it. Because with the newer generation, it's very hard for them to understand the requirement of marketing when you're not selling right away. But like you said, I could not agree more that consistency beats all kinds of other advertising.
I want to ask one question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, there is a report published a few hours ago on a newspaper. Not gold or FDs. Indian women prefer to invest in real estate now. So we have Bani and Yukti in the panel. Can they throw some light on this?
It's a very old sort of saying that, you know, traditionally, whether it's men or women in India, we've believed in the concept of Zevar and Zameen, right? So that's what 70% of the heartland actually believes is this most sound and safe investment. You know, trends might be changing, you know, over possibly the last 5 or 6 years, wherein as more and more women are you know, increasing their ability to sign a paycheck and you know, have now the capability of owning and buying a home themselves. I mean, if you were to ask me, if you know, I'm a professional and you know, I have to take a loan, I'd rather buy an apartment and have like a secure sort of asset in my name as opposed to buying jewelry for, you know, pretty much the same amount. So I feel like trends are changing as more and more women are becoming more empowered. Even if they're not working, even if they're not signing paychecks, they're becoming more empowered to become a part of the decision making process with their spouses, with their parents, etc. So I think definitely that's something that I would also personally choose to invest in.
I also agree with Bani right there. Zevar and Zameen, of course, they're the trends for the lifetime. And now I think with more and more women coming forward, taking their leadership positions, you know, being entrepreneur, being their own selves, that independent woman definitely wants to invest in real estate as any other independent man who's making money. So it is, that trend is definitely looking forward. I would also want to put my money and secure that asset by buying an apartment instead of buying any sort of jewelry which is going to, well, go out of style or I get bored of it. Apartment is something that a woman has always known to create a home out of. And with the woman empowerment and more women coming up and taking their own, making their own lives, this is a very good step into enhancing that empowered woman spirit.
Nimish,
Yeah.
the malls are closed for about 60 days now. And how tough it is to manage the rentals? Are the other retailers bargaining hard? How are you convincing them to stay on with you, to pay the rents? And how much the rentals have already reduced? And how do you foresee the rentals, the trend of the rentals in the malls?
So Palashji, first of all, you know, we have retailer partnerships for almost 12 to 13 years now. yes, rents have not been coming through at this time, but also we have also not demanded the rents. We have not billed to any of our tenants for last couple of months, simply to extend our support to them at this time and not putting a pressure on them when they don't have any sales. But at the same time, it will be something that we'll work out on a case-to-case basis. And once things open up, and we are hoping that things open fast, and we are able to sit down with our retail partners and find amicable, reasonable solutions which are a win-win for both. That said, I think on your second question regarding rentals, I think that's a very case to case and a very property specific impact. While we see that there might be some cash flow supports that people might have to extend for 3 months to 6 months to 12 months, depending upon what the asset is, what the brand is, etc., etc. You know, and but at the same time, the rental demand, I mean, just to give you an example, we have already a backup list of 20 to 30 tenants who are ready to go and take up a store and you know, sign up today as far as the center is concerned. So there is a fair bit of fresh capital which is also available. New retailers which are looking at India entry also. There are some brands that are discussing India entry also. So from that perspective, there is you know, two sides of every coin, and one has to make the best of the situation and come out stronger. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, is the pressure on the revenues, which means?
Yes, temporarily for sure. This year is going to be a tough one for the centers as well as the retailers. But I think that, like Ashish mentioned, there is pent up demand. There is people who want to now step out, who wants to spend money, who wants to feel that importance of going out and being social. You know, humans are social animals, and I think each one of us is craving to get out, and people are even while they can buy groceries for 10 days at a stretch, but they still like to go out every 3 days or 4 days and pick something fresh and not always order online. Why is that? Because people still want to feel that touch and feel of a store and do that even if it's for groceries. So similarly, we see that a lot of customers of ours are already contacting us and waiting for the center to open and asking us that when the brand will open, or if we can even arrange stuff for them to be delivered at their doorstep even while the center is closed. So there is people who are missing their regular purchase items, you know, and personal care items, and a lot of categories which will see an upswing in times to come also.
But unlike groceries, since your mall comprises many of the apparel brands, footwear brands, jewelry brands, and these are all subject to trials before buying. With COVID, with social distancing, with the threat of virus, don't you think that these businesses will be completely stopped for some time, the apparel stores and the footwear and jewelry?
No, I don't agree to that. There will be some challenge for F&B and maybe dressy apparel for some time, possibly, based on global trends that we are seeing. However, the retailers and the shopping centers have come out with very strong SOPs on how the products will be sanitized, even if they are tried on, how the trial rooms will be sanitized. Some stores are even putting policies in place that first you have to buy the product before you can try. Some stores are putting policies in place that once the product is tried, it will be put in a separate bin where they will steam iron it and do the sanitization of that product before it goes back to the rack. So there are different policies and SOPs that every store is playing. In fact, all the shopping centers for the first time across the country have come together under an association and put together a combined SOP, which each one of us are going to follow as a minimum. And, you know, all the large shopping center groups are part of that association. So there are all those checks and balances being put in place, and we see a lot of categories really seeing an upsurge once things open up.
There's a viewer question to Yukti and Bani, but I would like all of you to answer. It's an interesting question. How will you state your value proposition to young graduates looking to start a new career? With the uncertainty of real estate at this time, why should real estate be a good career option? Yukti, Bani, and also Ashish, Yash, everybody, Nimish, Mohit. Yukti, starting you.
Yeah, I'd like to start with that. See, real estate, like we all have been discussing, with everything else kind of crashing, real estate has been presented with a brand new opportunity in itself. And with, like Ashish earlier mentioned, when there's a lot of chaos, the ladder is just around the corner. So anybody who has that keen interest in this industry should very, very happily and without much a thought should enter into it. In fact, this is the time when we think of new innovations, new ideas, and new ways to reach that ladder quickly. And youth is always set to bring new ideas, new energy. And if anybody has that knack for real estate, this is the best time to enter. Not only they learn more deeply, but they also contribute to an already existing industry who's fighting for survival. So this is what I would advise to anybody who want to pursue real estate.
Bani, your answer to that?
Oh, like, it's a very pertinent question, and I understand the reluctance to possibly enter a space like this. But that being said, I mean, we're in the middle of like a global pandemic, and Uber just laid off 3,500 people on a Zoom call in 3 minutes. So I guess nothing is safe right now, and there's no good or no bad. I think if I'm to give like very neutralized advice, I would just say that identify your skill set. If it happens to be real estate, and if you are good, then you will survive, and you will not only survive, you will thrive. Because I do see the industry, coming back up and strong after some necessary measures that need to be taken by the government, by ourselves as well. If you're not skilled to be in this space, then find something that you're actually good at, and I don't think anything else then will matter.
Yes, how is real estate as a career option?
I believe it's a capital intensive market, and the best way to enter in this market for any young person should be, you should buy 10, 15, 50 apartments from any developer, negotiate the price, and start selling it. Earn that margin. That's the best way for next 1 year at least.
Just stop selling.
I can't believe this guy.
That assumption is like so interesting to me today.
But Mohit, if somebody doesn't have the money to invest, because Yash, as Ashish said, he is up to selling his product. But Mohit, as a career option, somebody who has graduated or post-graduated, would you suggest getting into real estate as a job option?
Palash, you said uncertain times for real estate. I do not agree with this statement. There is no uncertainty in real estate for sure. Rather, it has become more certain now after this pandemic situation. People have realized that this is the safest product to buy, safest product to invest, and it's a must product before anything else, their own house. So there is no uncertainty at all in terms of the real estate market. And with kind of product which is so safe and so investment, I don't think people should worry about their career while entering into real estate. It's going to be safest career. It is a short-term halt which we all are seeing, and we think by end of this year we'll be coming out of it with flying colors. And future of real estate is very bright. So whoever is thinking of getting into it must pursue this as a career. Indian real estate has a lot to see from here. We have just started. The development has just started, and we have many big things to come in this industry actually. So definitely it's a more certain industry, I would say. Better than better than stock markets or anything financial.
Yeah. I just like to add there to what Mohit said, and I can't agree more that, in times like these, I think people have realized the importance of a home far more than they ever had. I don't think there was any, with all due respect to all the frontline warriors, there was anything more than a home that actually protected everyone during these tough times. It was not the doctors, it was not the medicines, it was not anything else, but the home. Even from a work from home perspective, now people are looking at larger homes, more independent houses also, rather than very, you know, societies also. But at the same time, they are missing the feel of the earth under their feet, and they want to now venture out a little away from the city also and have more open areas. And in fact, all the hotbeds of COVID have been these very densely populated areas. So importance of real estate has only grown during this time. Also, I think what has come through in this time is the way the market crashed, the stock markets during this time. And stock markets are very agile, and they suddenly react to situations. And there was an erosion of wealth for lakhs and lakhs of people overnight, and they could not really save their money. That did not happen in real estate. I mean, even if some people needed some short funds or whatever, they had the option. It was not like their wealth suddenly depleted by 50, 60, 70% overnight, which happens in a stock market or a financial market crash. So I think people have realized that real estate is far more resistant to such reactions. Also, real estate being, to answer that question specifically, real estate is the number 2 employer of this country after agriculture. So even from that perspective, as a job career or as a career to make, I think it's a no-brainer to go after.
Yeah, Palasji, can I add my 2 cents to this?
Please, please.
So I think the first thing, real estate by itself, the name, signifies that it is real. Everything else that people are investing in, is mostly not real. Whether it is the stock market, people are just buying a perception of what things might be. But real estate is the only thing which is real, which you can hold. I mean, you can experience it around you. And what is not real estate? Whether it is your commercial, whether it is your office, whether it is your shopping mall, whether it's where we live or how we live. Do we live in an apartment? Do we live on a farmhouse or a bungalow? Anything, everything you see around you is real estate. Are we trying to say that there are no growth opportunities in a sector which surrounds every single human being on this planet? Are we trying to say that the population growth of this planet is going to greatly reduce with the coronavirus? None of this is happening. Yes, जहाँ पे एक दरवाजा बंद होता है 10 दरवाजे खुलते भी हैं. So you may see a reduction in certain classes within real estate, but it may open up new opportunities. We are seeing more demand, from people who have been first home buyers. The government is supporting by reducing the repo rate, for fresh home buyers, where they can get cheaper home loans. It's never been easier to own your first home compared to your rental, that people have been living on. And the value of having your own real home, I mean, it is at an all-time high at this moment in time. There is also a demand for farmhouses or larger bungalows or villas kind of, living where people can feel safer. There will always be growth in this. Now, the question to ask here is, the person who wants to pursue a career opportunity in real estate, is that person confident that he's cut out for this? Does he have the skill set which is required? Does he have the perseverance, the intelligence, and the hard work? Because one thing I can tell you, after this coronavirus, the market will be extremely competitive. Regardless of whatever industry you're in, only performers are going to move ahead. If you want sitting on a bench sort of a job, real estate is not for you. But if you want to grow and grow fast in life, then real estate is it for you.
Now, after listening to all the panelists, I think we will do a discussion on stock markets vis-a-vis real estate, which is a good investment option. Ashish, you were clapping when Mohit was saying that it's a good career option. How much of salary cuts have you done? How much of job cuts has been at Bhutani Group?
We have not fired a single individual in Botani Group. In fact, we are looking to hire about 150 more people in the next 3 months, and we'll be sending out feelers for the same. As far as the lower management is concerned, the construction staff is concerned, or the lower sales staff is concerned, there has been no salary cuts. Salary deferments have always been there, of course, depending on the time. But for now, we have not done any salary cut for anyone in the entire group. What happens is, I just want to tell the young man one thing. Everything in life is about demand and supply. Real estate is something that you cannot produce more. Stock market, be it gold, be it other forms of jewelry, be it IT, they're all jobs, they're all the careers, is something that can always be produced more. Real estate, on the other hand, is something you can't produce more land until and unless you exclude Dubai Palm Islands. Of course, I know a lot of people give me that example. But apart from that, if you talk about real estate in India per se, you can't produce more land. So the demand will always go up. Now the question depends on that person. Are they looking for an adventure, or are they looking for a boring desk job where they can sit and not do any innovation? If they're looking for a lifetime full of adventure, I think real estate is the only option in this world.
We have record number of viewers questions. I don't know whether we'll be able to take it all or not. We are extending the show by another half an hour. We'll carry on till 2:30. In the meantime, Aditya Rana has more questions. Aditya.
Yeah, I want to ask one question. Any one of you can answer, or Nayan can answer this. Liquidity crunch is there, funds scarcity is there. Overall, capital is a big challenge in current scenario and post-COVID world. So, are you thinking about listing of companies in the stock market? Can we see more real estate IPOs in coming days or months, or will it take years as you may wait for correct valuations?
The honest answer is I don't think that an IPO is would be on the minds of any real estate companies at this moment in time, just because of the fact that there is a short-term uncertainty. Of course, we are all very, very bullish, and we can keep talking at end about the long-term prospects of our industry. But in the short term, there is a bit of uncertainty. And my straightforward answer is that I don't think for the next 1 to 2 years, you will see many companies going this route.
Anyone else would like to answer that question? Anybody planning IPO?
No, but I kind of agree with Nayan. But my reason differs. Uncertainty, yes, there is short-term uncertainty. There is no doubt about that. But the problem with an IPO is people who invest in real estate do not invest in the IPOs. The market is entirely very different. Right now, people are very skeptical of what will happen in the stock market, with the markets crashing, then going back again to 31,000 odd levels, which some people are calling it extremely bullish and not true. America, the NASDAQ index, from its top levels, fell down to almost 28% and just 4% short of where it was standing when the coronavirus first hit in. So right now, people are thinking, even the markets are portraying that coronavirus is nothing but just a temporary pause, and after that, the markets will resume. But yes, the overall sentiment is down regarding to the stock market, and this is not a very good time to come up with a listing.
Ashish,
I have a
reflection of the economy, and that's why, and it was a knee-jerk reaction in Nasdaq, what we have seen. Absolutely. So it could happen to the real estate as well. It will reflect the state of the economy.
Absolutely. See, now that, as I said, Nasdaq recovered, right? Property, if you talk about different pockets, if you talk about a central Delhi where the prices are very high and some prices might come down, they will keep going back again. But if you talk about a Gurugram, or if you talk about a place like Noida, prices are already so low. The prices are almost where they are starting. There's a starting price. If you talk about the under construction properties, there is no scope of reducing the prices or the pricing going down. Yes, you can offer them some schemes, you can offer them some payment related incentives, but it can't be something major, something alarming. Of course, like what I always tell people, you get out schemes in the festive seasons. You have just brought them out early. That is the only difference.
इसमें एक चीज मैं ऐड करना चाहूंगा that while stock market listing may not be a great idea, but I do foresee in the next 6 months to a year, a lot of private equity placements may happen, because I think a lot of opportunities and windows may open up, in terms of great valuations for shares of particular companies, even if it's a private placement or a project based placement. So I
Agreed.
think mergers, acquisitions, and private equity, there may be a increase in these kind of things.
I want to add to that. Traditionally, I'm always a little torn in whether actually listing an out-and-out real estate company is the most sensible idea ever. So, of course, listing it during this time or going for an IPO is a different discussion altogether. I feel like if it's a REIT, if it's something that, real estate derivatives, REITs, or even platforms, that you might have, let's say, with other institutions, etc. I think those might be more sensible to list in general, as opposed to a real estate company which anyway kind of struggles to give quarter-on-quarter results because of just how dynamic it is.
Yeah, I in fact agree totally with Bani. I am of the view that real estate as a business, especially the residential sales side of it, does not make sense to list at all. The kind of life cycle of a project that we see from a 2-year to a 4-year kind of a window is not really something that is very conducive to the way the market perceives the stock price of a quarter-on-quarter or a year-on-year kind of a growth. Unless you have that wider base or that wider portfolio that every quarter you will be able to show enough sales or enough traction, where because sometimes it so happens that for 1 year or 2 years you are just constructing and you are not announcing sales, or you are maybe you've done some sales initially and then you held back the rest of the product for towards the end sales or whatever. So from that perspective, I just feel that real estate is not cut out as a business. That is my personal view and my analysis. And maybe the retail or the commercial platforms are more suited, which have a recurring income stream, which have some sort of a recurring income flow, which can also pass it on to the investors on a regular basis, compared to real estate, especially the sales or the residential side of it.
Can I add something to that? I'm very sorry, Nimish, but I absolutely do not agree with what you have said.
Sure.
If you talk about any good listed company, you talk about a Godrej, or you talk about the Trumps of the world, or you talk about the ARZs of China, whichever good company you would be talking about, most of them are in residential real estate.
I agree.
What you said, yes, about the quarter results coming in, most of the people thrive on the model that they have to sell no matter what. I know what Godrej does, ending March every quarter. Last year also they came out with a 1090 plan. It's not a new plan, and now the entire industry is all gaga, all about it. A lot of people in Notre Yash moved his head quite a lot. I know he was the one who introduced the 1090 plan immediately. But see, what happens is, if you talk about listings, more than the commercial, because the movement in commercial turnover is slower than residential. There's a lot of turnover happening now in the residential real estate market, especially the affordable segments or even the better segments. So listing brings in funds, which comes mostly interest free. So if you talk about the residential real estate market, the best option is to list, just that the time is not right now.
No, Ashish, I mentioned that unless you have a base wide enough to show if you have, say, 3 projects, then maybe you are not cut out for that, or 4 projects or 5 projects. Unless you have, like, look at Godrej, you mentioned. Godrej has good 20, 30, 40 projects across different geographies, across different timelines. And that kind of can show a quarter-on-quarter or a year-on-year kind of a growth.
When they started, they had 5.
Yeah. Sure. But they were already, they already had their consumer business listed.
Outlier, it's a conglomerate before it's, a real estate company. So I don't know if that is a fair comparison. That being
Godrej as a brand was already trusted as a consumer good, strong brand on the market. So anyway, that's
can I say one thing? Did we all think that real estate in India is going to go through the roller coaster ride that it has gone through? So none of us, we always think positive, but there is a lot of unpredictable things in India, especially with relation to government changes, policy changes, land law changes. There is so much happening. I think listing is great, but India needs to get organized and the laws need to be bloody first established, right? You look at America and China, we are comparing, but they've got bloody, some sort of a outlook that, some foundation is there. The problem here is every 6 months a new law comes in and you do all your calculations, suddenly everything changes, for the future. I think India needs to first settle down.
People have made money from real estate IPOs as well, both in IPOs as well as in secondary markets from realty stocks. But anyway, we'll move ahead. Aditya, you have further questions? Aditya, are you there? I think Aditya is not there. I'll take one more viewer question. This is from Manvendra Jha. In fact, a media question. Manvendra is with PTI. This is a question to Bani and Yukti. He is saying real estate is known for corruption and unfair practices. On supply side, the corruption is while taking approval from government authorities. On demand side, corruption is in taking cash from customers against sales booking. How both of you are addressing this issue, especially since you are a woman, addressing the cash part of it, both while on the supply as well as on the demand side?
I want to change this notion that we are a highly disorganized, corrupt sector, because please understand that even if that may have historically been the case, I don't think it exists today. I don't think that is the reality of today. I would rather argue that we're one of the most sort of regularized sectors in most sort of industries today. You have RERA in place. You have, very, very stringent laws in place. You have NCLT now. Where is the room for any corrupt practices? There is no room for any corrupt practices. So, in fact, it should encourage more and more women to want to be a part of this. Because I don't think, that reputation that real estate enjoyed, like in the 70s and 80s, and Amitabh Bachchan used to come like this, Don, who was this bad guy and he used to like abuse his laborers and all. That does not happen today, guys. It's a very professional setup that we work in. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to exist in this ecosystem.
Finally, something I can agree with Bani on.
Amitabh Bachchan played a builder in Trishul. Bani, Yukti, your answer to this corruption?
Could you repeat that question, Palash? I was disconnected in between.
A viewer is asking, there is a lot more corruption both on the demand and as well as on the supply side. While you take approvals from the government authorities, there is corruption. While you do booking, while you do sales, there is cash component. So how do you address that?
Well, I think it used to be very prevalent in the industry, but from what I'm seeing in the last 3-4 years, I think all of that is completely eradicated. If not, prevalent in this very, very small percentage. So I think that corruption can be controlled very easily with stronger, robust systems, good policies. Otherwise, corruption happens at the level of the banks also. You don't stop joining banks for that. You just build robust systems to counter that. And that is what the future of real estate is also, that you keep strengthening your systems in order to avoid it at every stage, whether at booking and whether at approval stage. Even now, the government authorities have also made the transparent ways to seek those approvals. The websites, there are registrations happen over website, and a lot of exchanges of documents have also happened on the website. And during the lockdown, you'd be surprised, so many authority meetings have happened on a Zoom call, where you would wait for 2-3 days outside the offices. Now it's just 30 minutes and everybody is on time and your work is done. So slowly and steadily, I think the much needed change is coming in the industry, reducing that level of corruption to a great, great, great extent. I don't think it's a problem anymore.
Yes, and
Palashji, can I just add one thing? And it's a very dear friend's question. I want to just add one thing. Manvenderji very well knows the RERA norms that have come into place. Every 3 months we are giving an audited report to the RERA authorities, both in Gurgaon and Delhi, wherein we are not only supposed to tell them what we have sold, we are supposed to tell them how much we have sold it for, how much money we have collected, and how much money has gone into construction. This level of transparency, although it is really painful for us to follow all this framework, but these kind of compliances are now by the government of India. So you can rest assured. However, it is the option, if there are clean people who don't want to accept cash, you can say always, no to the cash. But the government has put everything in place for this to be 100% corruption-free or a cash-free sector.
I also want to add another point to that. The government has made enough policies, and that definitely ensures that level of transparency. Along with that, real estate very, very much functions on raised capital. You raise funds from here and there, from IPCs, from good banks, and with that, I think that level of corruption pretty much eradicates completely. We have to oblige by each and every guideline, and with that, where is the scope of fudging that amount at all? I don't see that that's the case. So with the more robust systems and better technologies, and even RERA adopting technologies, banks adopting technologies, I don't see any room for it left anymore.
I agree.
Aditya, more from you. Aditya?
Yeah. I want to ask one question. CREDAI has written an open letter to PM asking several demands, like reducing interest rates to 5% for next 5 years for new home buyers only. Also, interest rate limit for tax benefits to be increased by 10 lakhs from current 2.5 lakhs, and principal rebate to be increased by 2.5 lakhs from current 1.5 lakh. Do you really think it's possible that these demands can be accepted by the government? And suppose they are going to accept the demands, then how much rebound in the real estate can be seen in the coming times?
I would like to answer the very first question. What you said, the home buyers should get the 5%. Yes, that can actually happen now, since the repo rate has been reduced to 4% per annum. If the banks keep a cut of 11 basis point or a 21 basis point, and just for the new home buyers, and maybe just for the initial period, then can ramp up as the rates go up and then can cover their losses. See, right now India is at a trade deficit of 5.5%. That's almost 11 lakh crores. India cannot afford to lose any more money. With the principal rebate, even I agree it is not very much possible right now, but 5% to the new home buyers is very much possible right now from the government side, since the repo rate has already been reduced.
I just like to add, we recently did a study of the repo rates versus all the banks' MCLR rates for the last 1.5 years. It was done by CREDAI, and we put it together. And just to highlight, in January 2019, the repo rate was around 6.5%, and now it's down to 4%. So there has been a cut by 2.5%. Whereas in average, the banks have only cut this MCLR rates, their MCLR rates, between 0.7% to 1.2%. So which means that even though RBI has passed on that leverage to the banks, but the banks have only passed on maybe just 1% odd on an average out of the 2.5% which they've got, which is actually adding to the balance sheet of the banks, and it is not getting passed on to the real consumers and the business of the country. And whether it is real estate or whether it is any other sector, it has to trickle down into the system, because the RBI's intention is actually that the rates should come down so that the home buyer benefits, so that every business benefits out of that whole. Today, interest is the real trouble. In fact, just got a alert that the Supreme Court has sent a notice to the RBI to answer why interest should not be waived for the 6 months moratorium, which is a great sign. So let's hope something comes out of that. But point again being that RBI has shown the intention for reduction of interest rates. It is the banks who have to follow. If they are not following, somebody has to put that message, whether it is the Ministry of Finance or whether it is the industry coming together or whether it is the groups of home buyers coming together to put that message across to them.
I'd just like to add just one little thing. So the entire attempt of CREDAI in this is that, of course we need to understand, which is why I keep coming back to the same point. We can talk about what an opportunity we have in the long term when it comes to real estate, given, the situation that we're in today. But that opportunity exists only for people who manage to survive this pandemic and this time in their businesses. Now that cannot happen if there is no liquidity in the system. I cannot acquire new projects and build them and think of a very bright future if I cannot complete what I have today. In that sense, the attempt of CREDA is that, enable the home buyer and enable the institution that's lending to us. And we are very happy doing our job. We are going to be perfectly fine as long as the banks that have promised to lend us money to finish our project are doing so. And as long as the home buyer is also motivated to buy that home. So, if you kind of enable both of these, we are very happily going to be able to exist in that system.
Taking Manvinder questions ahead, all the panelists talked about RERA bringing more transparency, and so no corruption. Leasing is out of RERA's purview. Ashish and Nimish, so there is a scope of corruption there.
See, as far as, with all due respect to everyone, corruption is something that people don't like to talk about. I don't see it as corruption. It is part and parcel of every system in the world. Not saying that any of us do or don't do. I'm not commenting on that. But corruption is part and parcel of every country in the world where large ticket sizes are concerned. In order to advance, there are some hands that have to be greased. There are some privileges that have to be given and which will never go away. Anybody thinking otherwise is living in an amazing land, and I would be like to be part of that land, very honestly.
Nimish?
Palaji, in fact, in leasing world, we are actually dealing with much more organized sector, far more, organized set of systems, MNCs, large corporations, global brands, whether it is for office leasing or whether it is for retail leasing. And they are all very professionally run organizations. I mean, we follow a system of a revenue share with every brand, and every brand does report it to us on a monthly basis. They share their data and on a confidential basis. But that's something which is very, very common in today's world, and it's not at all the days and age what we are talking of. I think we have moved far ahead with the new world, and it's important we all accept and see the new world and see the new way the real estate is done today, rather than keep living in that legacy view of the industry.
Yes, we have been receiving reports from your agencies that you are doing a record number of sales during this time. What is the mantra, both for residential sales as well as retail and office leasing? How you have been able to achieve, if we were to believe to what your agency says?
So my total focus is on masses market. So I am launching a product which starts from 20 lakhs and goes up to 50 lakhs. That's my ticket size. So a lot of schemes and a lot of derivatives has been derived to attract the customers, and I'll just give an example about it. So we have given EMI free to the customers also for next 3-4 months. That's one of the schemes we have launched, and we are counting just pay 5%. We are counting it as 10%. So all those schemes have been given to the customers, so they're getting it. So my only target was to just burst that pipeline which was there with me from last 1 year. Only target in lockdown was to just burst it. I was trying to just make new plans, but ultimately I just came to that situation that I have to do something good out of the box. Then only they will get in because they've already seen the project. So that's one of the best advantage for me right now. I had to give good schemes, good rates, and good payment plan, which is very important. And most of my company are almost near to the possession, so which is one of the advantages.
Yes, there is a collection issue. There is a liquidity burden. How are you able to manage these schemes? How are you managing your cash flows then?
So cash flows is like we have that construction finance partners also. So we have talked to those guys. They are supporting us in terms of the cash flows. So they are saying just go for the sales, mark the numbers. We are there with you for the cash flows. So we're getting good support from the bank's end. We are not getting any problem in that. Just from the collections end, there's a big problem. So we are trying to solve it. In about next month or so, we'll be in a situation to handle it. We have done a lot of homework on that. Let's see how it goes.
Mohit, you see demand of luxury has come down. You have a luxury project. How is it doing in these times, post-COVID era?
Yeah, as I said, we have seen a spike in the demand during this lockdown period, especially in this lockdown period. And I don't see luxury going down, because luxury housing is not just the housing, it's investment also, because ticket price being high, it is considered as an investment also for all HNIs. And we have seen a hike in the demand of luxury housing as well. People who were investing here and there in stocks and everything, I'm saying it again, but they are coming back to the housing. And luxury housing is doing good as well. Only difference is luxury housing is being, the sales are being happening more towards the closer to the completion or possession of the property, as compared to affordable housing. But there is no dip in luxury housing which I can foresee.
I'd just like to add there, even we are getting very similar sentiments. We work a lot in South Delhi market also, and luxury floors in South Delhi market. And we are also getting similar sentiments. In fact, we are also getting feelers with the perspective that a lot of other kind of spending which people would have done at this time or around this year, whether it was doing destination weddings, whether it was doing those kind of luxury spends, they are now planning to put that money elsewhere in luxury housing and gift it to their children as part of the wedding or whatever. So there is an alternate view, and a lot of people are now looking at bigger homes, luxury homes as well, and looking at reallocating their spends. A lot of international travel that used to happen during the summertime, that money will not be spent by these people. I mean, we all know almost a very large population used to travel abroad. A lot of that money will come back to be spent either in retail areas, or whether it is even in residential investments or similar.
Continuing with the luxury thing, I'll take one last viewer question. There's a viewer called Nareen Singhal who is asking to all panelists, we deal in high ultra luxurious segment clients. During this pandemic situation, how can we start convincing those high profile clients now when things are not certain, and these companies, chairpersons of these companies are also affected? So Yukti, Bani, you would like to answer to that, Nayan? Anyone?
Yes, I would like to say that definitely for a buyer of luxury homes, it's people like us who run their own businesses. So it's a time of uncertainty, and it's best not to poke them for a sale at this point. But with that being said, we have time and time again during this session discussed that how it is how the importance of having the right home has come out during this pandemic crisis. And luxury home, luxury is a very subjective term, but for me, luxury is something that you have that sense of belongingness. That's something that you own, and that's something that works for you completely, through all thick and thin. And this pandemic has made me realize that for me, that luxury home would be something that inculcates a healthier lifestyle, a healthier living in itself. Now, having a project which is focused just about that wellness of anybody who's staying, that I'm getting a lot of inquiries around the same, that what have you designed differently to make that relevant to the time of today. So luckily that planning 2 years ago has worked beautifully for me right now, and that is why that query is definitely coming. So the ideal thing would be to keep connected with your people, tell them about what you have, what is beneficial in your product, and the kind of vision that you have created for their living overall. But yes, poking them for an urgency to buy right now would not be right. If anybody would come to me also to spend my money, I would tell them to back off a little bit. So not poking, but keeping connected with them is the key to go.
Sorry?
I'd like to add here once that there is 24 lakh crore rupees just in circulation in India right now. So there are people who have money to spend. Now your kind of skill and intelligence lies in identifying these people who have money that they'd like to park in assets, and then whether that's family offices, whether that's HNIs, actually approaching them and convincing them that given that you do have money to spare, given that you do have money that you'd like to invest, this happens to be the best time to invest it, because it cannot get worse than this. So if you can manage to convince your clientele like this, I think that's the only way to go.
Ashish,
Largely,
you were saying something to that? Yeah, Nayan, go ahead.
Please.
sorry, I'll just finish quickly. Luxury, I don't know whether you're specifically talking about housing or just luxury per se. But I can tell you, for instance, the steps we have taken, we have of course seen a little bit of a reduction, in the sales. It has come down by about 30-40%. But having said that, we are still content that, the amount of sales that's happening, it's all, robust sales and happening during this time. It's fantastic. So the steps we are taking. One is the consumer mindset right now of buying a larger home and, understanding that the coronavirus threat may be there for, times to come. As well as, a lot of people are planning that they will continue to work from home and they need larger apartments. This is one of the points, that is being sort of stressed upon the customer. That is one. Second is, if we have to live with the coronavirus as it is, with the vaccine notwithstanding, we don't know when that's going to happen. People want to actually spend more on themselves. They've just realized that, being packed up in a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom, instead of that, if I'm in a 4-bedroom or if I'm in a larger house, it may make more sense and people are willing to spend on that larger apartment. Number two. Number three, we are also soon launching another project, which is a farmhouse-based colony. It's going to be one of its first of its type, where we are trying to project living off the land completely with 100% no dependence on anything from the outside. That we are seeing a lot of interest in, and I think that would be one of the most luxurious things to in these times. Number four, we've come up with a special incentive scheme for people who we were in pipeline, and during this COVID times, we are giving them a COVID insurance scheme. Plus, we are giving them a special incentive for booking within the lockdown period. COVID insurance, I don't want to get into the details of it, but it acts like a real estate plus insurance kind of a scheme. Both these things are working, quite well, where people are willing to give a token amount right now and pay the majority of the amount later. So the channel partner or whoever it is, the gentleman, can look into these parameters to stress upon to his clients.
Lastly, Ashish, you were also wanting to answer to that question?
Yeah, just first of all, Nayan, if that was short, how do your long speeches look like? Anyways, the thing, sorry, enlighten.
It was short in my head.
Farmhouse.
Sorry for taking too long.
For all of us. Anyways, see, the thing is, what happens is, as Yukti said, the time is right now is not to sell, or if somebody approaches. All I was saying is, the time to sell is always there. It just depends on how good an offer it is. If somebody offers a brand new S-Class to you for a 40% off, or get an E-Class free with the S-Class, obviously it will generate interest. Right now, if somebody tells me buy this car, I will say no. But if somebody comes up and gives me a lucrative offer, I will get up and start listening to them. Yes, these times are uncertain, but for people like the chairmen or the CEOs or the people who can actually buy sub 6 crore apartments, for them, they know they are secure. Whether it be A company, B company. See, money has not evaporated or disappeared. It has just, the rotation has slowed down, and the rotation will start, if not in X thing, then in Y thing, in sanitizers. You have, in sanitizers alone, I think the amount of money that is being pumped in right now into the economy is huge. So that is a new segment that has opened up. And those sanitizers are not being sold by new people who have come out from India. They're the same very people who have been living in India. Your target audience has just changed. That is the only difference that has happened. But now the time to sell has always been there, is always there, and will always be
there. It is 2:30, but I'll take one viewer's question, one last viewer questions to you all. This is Anup Verma asking, in the new normal, do you think the conventional long-term marketing plans still hold relevance, or the brand should adopt short-term marketing plans and budget according to the behavioral change that will witness in the future? So, short-term or long-term marketing plans, what will you adapt to all of you one by one? Maybe we'll start with Yash.
Yash is on a call.
Yash is on a call. Bani, you would like to answer that?
No, he is not. Please.
If he's not here, I'll take that. See, the thing is that one size doesn't fit all, and it entirely depends on what is the inventory that you have today, what is the volume of inventory you have, and what is the saleability of that, what stages are your projects under construction in, what projects do you need to adapt a short term sort of marketing strategy for, and are you looking for like a long term strategy when it comes to branding. So for each company, I think it'll be different because we're all in different stages of our respective businesses. That being said, I think I would probably say that, for the short term, I would like to observe, how things go. When do we expect the markets to kind of slightly recover from the slump that we're in? Until then, maybe adopt, digital marketing as a primary sort of, means of communication that I might have. And as things get better, then evolve that strategy. See, the long-term strategy is for everyone just sales, right? So that stays, but you kind of evolve your, planning based on what situation you're in.
Okay, now Manvendra Jha from PTI is again asking a question. This is an interesting question, so I'll ask. Will this new generation collaborate and work together for overall growth of the sector, or cutthroat competition will continue? Ashish, you are smiling.
Yeah, of course. See, cutthroat competition can never exist in real estate. The thing is, every developer, all the projects that we are doing are all worth thousands of crores. Nobody sitting here would be doing any lesser projects. And still, everybody wants to do more. But the capital that the funds required, your own funds required, are limited. They'll end up at 10 projects, 100 projects, doesn't matter, but there is a limit to everything. If you talk about the overall development of India, if we all work 10 times, all of us that are working for the next 200 years also, land is not going to disappear. So the more the merrier, I think. But only quality developers are required who can actually deliver the promises they talk about.
I just have one very generic point. It's from an interesting thesis that I recently read. It just said that if we were to observe China as a country and how it's progressed over the years, we'd understand that what they've done is kind of reduce the competition that they have within the country, within the industries, like in group competition, and increased it collectively with countries around them. So if we want to progress unanimously together as a country, we're going to have to work together. I don't think cutthroat competition is going to help us thrive, at all in the long term.
Yeah, I would just like to add. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mohit. Oh, sorry, Yukti. Yukti, you first.
Okay. I was just saying that I think that is what we've also been witnessing for quite some time, with us, the second gen coming in, there is a lot of collaboration amongst the entire industry. That is how we are progressing. We are putting a stronger foot forward even towards the government, to any other products that are being developed. Talk about affordable housing. There was a great collaboration that lifted the market instantly to come up. And I think this is, like Bani said, this is the only way to progress together as a country and to uplift the real estate of the entire nation. We have to work collaboratively. Otherwise, cutting each other out, we all know which ports we are all in.
Nimish, you were saying something?
Yeah, I was just saying that we are already in the age of collaboration. I don't think that we need to collaborate. We are already collaborating. I mean, I have met all these wonderful panelists over most of them except Ashish probably, but through CREDAI, and CREDAI was a medium where we are sharing best practices, where we are meeting regularly to understand each other's way of doing business. Even, and through this platform today, we have an access to reach out to any developer and ask them any question about how they are tackling a particular issue, how they are tackling a particular problem, whether it was any issue that any of us faced over the last 2-3 years, whether it was lower demand due to demonetization, whether it was GST impact, whether it was RERA. I think we have all collaborated jointly, represented in various forums, whether it was NAREDCO, CREDAI, or any other association. And I think we have only come out stronger and more system driven. And so the collaboration is here to stay. And there is enough for everyone. Like Ashish mentioned, there is enough for everyone. There is so much that you can do. And there is no limit of the amount of work and the number of customers that this country can offer. So I think there is no need for any cutthroats. I think it's rather the age to even collaborate more and come out stronger at these times and help each other wherever we can.
देखिए मैं भी अपना अच्छा चलो मोहित भाई को पहले बोलने दो अपना व्यू.
Balaji, the industry has already gone from competition to collaboration. As Namish told you that through various platforms like Redeye, Naredco, we all have worked, came together and started working together as an industry. Be it talking to government or solving a bigger issues, and we have actually solved a lot of issues through these platforms. Not just the government thing, we have actually started doing a lot of new model projects like DM, which was never heard before, profit sharing, and many other different kind of models which we have started working upon amongst developers only. So this was never seen before, but from last 3-4 years, it has all become about collaboration. I don't see any cutthroat competition coming in. Rather, we all have become partners to a bigger organization, and we all are already have started working together actually.
Yes, you have anything to add on that?
I wanted to first please let me finish. I have a very important point to make. I have serious competition with all these people over here, but the only competition that is a singing competition, because I know most of them sing at my place. We've had various nights where we've sung together, and there is always a very, very cutthroat competition. So, but that was on a.
Yes, last word from you.
Man, you're winning that competition.
Way of
Hands down.
Collaborating between the developers for a location actually. So there's no price war. The most important part is the price war right now. So we could collaborate together and marketize for the location specific, so that we could get good number of leads and conversions. So right now for next 1 year it's all about cash flows. So my total focus is on the cash flow and the sales. So next we could plan something and just focus on the location and do marketing as per the location.
So we'll end with this. Hope your collaboration won't turn into a cartelization as cement companies do, which you guys keep on complaining. Thank you all for joining us. We will be again back. Realty Web Series will be back again next Tuesday at 1 p.m.
Thank you so much. Good seeing all
Thank
of
you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you
bye.